and 7 p.m. at my place and 8:30 in India, so the time is right to get started. So Radhe Radhe, a very warm welcome to all of you to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Let's get started. I'll pull up my screen and we will get started by invoking the blessings of God and Guru like we always do. Let me share my screen, share my sound, and we show what's going on. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's get started. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. All right. So Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening to all of you. Again, a very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. Let's get started. We will go a little deeper, or at least move the topic forward. We were in 2.72. Where God was talking about, how we can attain His abode. And today I have picked up another shloka from Bhagavad Gita. It's from chapter 8, verse 16, which is associated with what we are discussing right now, and would enable us to take the discussion forward. So let me recite that and then you're welcome to follow along. Abraham bhuvana lokaha punaravartino arjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. Okay, let's take a few hands.
Surya Prakashi, please go ahead.
Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu kaunteya Punarjanmana vidyate.
Very nice, Surya Prakashi, Radhe Radhe. Okay,
Sandhya-ji,
can take the remaining hands.
Radhe Radhe. Abraham Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Punarjanma na vidyate.
Very nice, Sandhya. Radhe Radhe. All right.
Rahul-ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe Rahul.
Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupete tu Kaunteya Punarjanma na vidyate. Jai Mata Di.
Jai Shri Ram. Thank you very much.
Shyam-ji,
Right.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Shyamji.
Brahma Bhuvana Lokaha Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Punarjanma na vidyate. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Thank you. Radhe Radhe. Shyamji.
Sumesh-ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe Amitwani ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punaravartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu kaunteya Punarjanmana vidyate. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice. Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Sumesh. Okay, we can pick up the remaining hands. We can freeze the number of hands and
Sure.
get the discussion going here.
Sam-ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Brahma bhumna loka Vanarvartino Arjuna Mamupetya tu Kaunteya Vanarajanma na vidyate. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, very nice, Samji. Okay, last two hands.
Riya ji, please go ahead.
Radhe Riya ji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, Riya ji.
Brahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartino Arjuna mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate.
Wonderful,
Radhe
Riya ji.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, very nice. Thank you. Last but not the least, Ramesh ji.
Go ahead, please, Ramesh ji. Radhe Radhe.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Brahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinorjuna mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate.
Wonderful. Very nice, Ramesh ji. So let's get started. I picked up this shloka because this question we were talking about what is God realization, right? And what happens when you realize God? And one of the questions that keep popping up or probably plays out in our mind is, does it mean that the journey of soul has completed? That journey of soul is finished? Now in this shloka, Lord is saying that very clearly, saying what happens. He's saying in all the worlds of this material creation, first of all, he's classifying creation as material creation. Okay, then that means there's another level of creation as well. That's what we're going to look at. Up to the highest abode of Brahma, you will be subject to rebirth. That means you will be subject to rebirth, means you will have to get reborn because you have to exhaust your karmas. But on attaining my abode, O son of Kunti, there is no further rebirth. Then you are out of the cycle of death and birth and death cycle, basically. Or does it mean the soul existence ceases to exist at that point? No, answer is no. Soul is still there. The journey never ends. However, the trajectory of journey may vary based on how you have completed your God realization in its entirety, or maybe one of the aspects of God. That's what we are going to talk about. It's a very philosophical and an engaging discussion we will have on this topic. So we'll talk about that. So let's move on as we get deeper into this shloka and the concept that we are going to discuss today. So truth, what is truth basically? People will say truth is something which is subjective, which is contextual. However, there's something called an absolute truth as well. That means it's just like this. Like as scriptures say, principles and opinions, they are different. Opinions could vary between people. Principle is something which is universal. So principle is something that comes directly from scriptures. Opinion is something that we form because of the way we think or because of our perception of this world or what we have taken from that tidbit of knowledge that we have been exposed to. So opinions could vary. Everybody is entitled to have an opinion, but principles is something which is universal in appeal, right? Similarly, truth is something, it is contextual, right? Now, if the truth in entirety, and truth is basically when you have a complete realization of something, and that is what we are going to, deliberate or think about or get our intellectual juices flowing around. What is an absolute truth around God realization is what we are talking about. And if we realize God up to a certain extent or a certain aspect of God, have we realized the truth in its entirety, or still it's not the absolute truth? Okay, we'll leave it up to discussion without passing on any opinion or principle, stating any principle around it. Okay, we can have a good discussion around it. So let's move on now. And then what is the top prize of God? That is something which is very clearly stated in scripture. So there's no two ways about it at all. Okay, what is the topmost prize a Jivatma can get from God? That is also something we will see how far we can go into that aspect today. So let's get started. Now, God is in this particular thinking, they, Brahma Bhuvana Loka, highest abode of Brahma. And then he's saying it is also a material abode. So what is the creation? How does the demographics of this entire creation look like? Let's look at it first of all. It's fascinating. So this is basically, let's say this is a material creation, a set, right? We have done in maths, Venn diagrams, sets and all that stuff. So let's say this is a set of material creation. What does it encompass? Let's look at that. This encompasses multiple Brahmans, not just one. See, it sounds a little paradoxical. You say universe and then you say multiple universes. So universe itself means everything encompassing, right? But the point here is that our limited understanding is that we are aware, of universe. We call it universe, but actually there are multiverses, multiple Brahmans. So we are not even aware of our solar system. Forget about knowing our galaxy. And similar, there are billions of galaxies, and that all those galaxies, they are part of our Brahmand only. Similar to our Brahmand, there are multiple Brahmands and with different Brahmas, different Vishnus, different Shankars. That is how vast this material creation is. And this was this actually was illustrated in Krishna Lila, which happened 5,000 years ago as well, when Brahmaji comes to meet him, and he tells that the doorkeeper that tell Krishna that Brahmaji has come to meet him, and when Krishna tells him, okay, ask him which Brahma, and then Brahmaji said, what does it mean, which Brahma? I'm Brahma. And then Krishna, just to put things in perspective, he calls upon all the Brahmas. And that's where the Brahma realizes, he's seeing Brahmas who are coming. He has 4 heads. Our universe is basically governed by a 4-headed Brahma. Similar to that, this entire creation, material creation, is governed by multiple Brahmas. Some of them have 10 heads, some of them 50, 100, 1,000, million, billion, trillion, infinite. We have no clue about how vast this creation is. So you can imagine if we don't have an understanding of our universe, how vast it is, you can imagine a universe of Brahmaji who has million, trillion, and infinite heads. How vast this material creation is. So that is how vast the Brahmands multiverses are. Now, if you're thinking, this is mind-blowing. So let me throw in another part of it. It is mind-blowing for sure, but then this whole material creation that God is talking about is just 1/4 of the entire creation. 3/4, 3 times more is another creation, which you can get into the depths of those. Bhagavatam talks about it, which is now what happens is, now here's a border. Material creation is there. And then on the cusp between material and the other world, which is called the spiritual abode, there is something called a Birja river. Okay? And it is said that the Brahma Gyanis, they lie in this Birja river having attained moksha. Okay. I may not be completely right, but this is what I've heard. Beyond Birja river comes Paravyom Lok. So if you know somebody, neighbor's kid, whose name is Paravyom, it's a pretty fascinating name. Okay. I've heard this name. A lot of people keep this name these days. Vyom, Paravyom. So Paravyom Lok is where the spiritual abodes, which we have so far not gotten our visa stamped for. Okay. And it's a one-way. You don't come back. So what Lord Krishna is saying, that when you come to celestial abodes, you are no longer subjected to cycle of birth and death. That means you are not forced to come back because you have not exhausted your karmas. That doesn't mean you cannot choose to take on a service for God and come back to, one of these lokas as a service to God. So you may have gotten out of the cycle of birth and death, but then you can voluntarily choose as an assignment for God to come back again. That doesn't mean you have become human again. That means you are still a done deal, but you have taken upon that additional responsibility as a service to God. And when you take that upon, that responsibility, that doesn't mean that you have come under the influence of Maya at that point. They are still beyond Maya. Why? Because once somebody becomes God realized, not only they are beyond the cycle of birth and death, but they become Yogamaya Yukta. Yogamaya Yukta means they have actually conquered Maya. Yogamaya is superior energy of God, right? And God actually gives his Yogamaya power to that particular Jivatma who has completed the God realization process. And then what is there in these Paravyom Loks? Paravyom Loks has, Golok is the farthest one, Saket Lok, Vaikunt, Durga, Devi Lok, Shiv Lok. Depending upon your Aradhya, they all have their own abodes there. And this spiritual abode, when the pralay happens, Brahmaji's one day, one kalpa and stuff, these abodes are not destroyed. They continue to exist. Depending upon your Ishtadev, how you have perfected your devotion, that is the loka you end up getting. Right? So for example, if you are a big Devi Bhakt, you do Jama and consider Durga Mata as your Aradhya, and let's say you perfect your devotion, you perfect your surrender, then you get the privilege to go to Devi Lok. Or if you have perfected your devotion to Lord Shiv, then you go to Shiv Lok. If you have perfected your devotion to Lord Ram, you go to Saket Lok, because God gives you the opportunity to include you in his pastimes and enable you to serve him in the way you have always worshipped. And if you have worshipped God as Lord Krishna, then you go to Golok. So all possibilities are there based on what you choose to deepen your relationship with God in whatever form you wish to do that. And that is where all these lokas are created. In fact, in some of the Maharaji lectures, he goes on to the extent of telling the diameter direction of all these lokas as well, that on the south of Golok, it is Saket Lok at Index, it spans that. All those details, dimensions are there, okay? I don't know how much it will help you, but that is how it has been vividly described. It is mind-blowing, but yeah, that is how it is. Now, Golok Vihari is our Lord Krishna. If you perfect your devotion and as Lord Krishna, then you go to Golok. Now, if you perfect your devotion in what you call Vaidhi Bhakti and consider God as Narayan, four-armed form, where you consider him as subject-object relationship, where you think he is king and I'm just a subject of my king, then God meets you as Narayan, and basically you get Vaikuntha Dham in that case, where you are actually built to connect with God in his official form. Right? You do Vishnu Sahasranama and all that stuff. That is called Vaidhi Bhakti. But if you have gone to Raganuga Bhakti and you consider God in a loving relationship, then there are possibilities in Golok which we're going to talk about, right? So these are the entire creation, and this is 3/4. Okay. Once you get there, like I said, once you get your visa stamped for any of these lokas, there's no coming back. You can choose to come back, but you don't have to come back. And you are beyond Maya at that point. Your journey still exists. Your journey continues. We'll talk about what happens to a journey of a person who has attained moksha as opposed to somebody who has attained the personal form of God or the divine love. We'll get into that topic as well. But the journey does not cease. It's not like nothing. Okay, you will continue to exist even after that. It's just that you're a done deal at that point, and then enjoy. It's like you've hit a lottery. You can choose to be part of God's pastime, or you could choose to remain in perpetual bliss as Brahmanandi, or you could choose to come back and serve as a saint, or you could choose to accompany him in his pastimes. It's like a lot of possibilities open up at that point. Now, within material lokas also, there are so many different classification of jail God has created, right? It's not so straightforward right now. Every Brahmand has, let's look at it. Bhu, Bhuva, Swar, Mahar, Jana, Tapo, Satya. These are called upper planets. Okay. Even Bible talks about the 7 heavens, the upper planets. And Satyalok is the Brahma Lok, by the way, which God is talking about, and it's the highest one. The key point here is that even Brahma Lok is under the material realm. So if you go to Brahma Lok, you will still be subject to the material laws, and you are still in 8.4 million. You have not transcended that as yet. Brahmaji, let's understand, Brahmaji is a post that a Jiva Atma can get as well. Indra you can become Brahma, you can become, there are criteria left for that, right? If you do this, and then you become that. So if you're sufficiently elevated, you can play that part as well. Indra, we possibly might have become Indra also. We have taken so many lives that there's a good possibility we have gone through all these lokas. Now, Brahma is a post that a Jivatma can take. However, it's like a army quota, right? God doesn't compromise, because it's a very, what do you call that, sophisticated job and a very high responsibility job. So if he doesn't find a suitable Jivatma, let's say in one of the Brahmans, then God himself takes on the role of a Brahma as well for that Brahman. And if he gets the Jivatma to fulfill that role, then to give him the credit for all the outstanding job Brahmaji does, right? That soul becomes God realized immediately after vacating the post of Brahma, which is 100 years, right? We know one day of Brahma, how big it is. So 100 years, you can imagine, it's a pretty long length. So after Brahmaji completes his tenure as Brahma, assuming it was a Jivatma, then that soul gets elevated to God realization at that point because of the fantastic job Brahmaji gets to do. Yes, Sandhya, you had a question?
There is a question from Gunjanji. What happens to Hanumanji's devotees?
Hanumanji is considered himself a devotee, right? You go to Saket Lok. Hanumanji is an eternal associate of Lord Ram. So he's a parikashtha, or the epitome of Dasya Bhav. So you go to Saket Lok, wherever Ramji is, Hanumanji is there. Wherever Ram Katha is, Hanumanji is there. Hanumanji visited our Arketi temple as well. I can tell you that story again in one of our sessions. So yeah, you go to Saket Lok. All right. So this is Bhulok, is middle planet where we are. Okay, and then you have Atal, Vital, Sutal, Taratal, Mahatal, Rasatal, Patal. There are 28 Narak Loks as well. Okay, this is an area you would probably like to avoid. Okay, it's not a cool place to go in, and the least we can do is not build a business case for ourselves to be rolled into one of these planets. It's not a good place to go in. Okay, as you would have heard, Narak, right? It doesn't invoke good emotions. So one should try to avoid these lower planets. And Garud Puran goes to the extent of explaining, what kind of narak you would get if you do this, if you steal gold, if you do one of Panch Mahapaps, if you do this, that. But we should not our devotion should not be motivated by fear, by trying to figure out, okay, which narak I need to avoid. Rather, we should figure out how do we get out of the cycle itself. So this is basically a landscape of the entire creation. So what God is saying in the shloka, all the way up to Satyalok, you guys are still playing in the your game, the Ghar Ghar game, or whatever game you are playing in the material world only. You're not going beyond that. You may get a better luxury in higher planets, or you may be tormented if you go to Naraklok, but both of them are temporary and you are still rotating in 8.4 million. Unless you have gone into the Paravyong Lok or the Birja River. And that is what we are going to talk about. That is called God realization. Okay, where you have starting with moksha, that is God realization. Moksha is God realization. But the possibilities of the bliss of God, it goes beyond moksha as well. That is what we've been discussing. Okay, moksha is not an ordinary accomplishment. That is where Bhagavad Gita ends as well. So moksha is a spiritual attainment. But then we are going even further, because we have Maharajji and Swamiji, right, which tells us in Chaitanya Charitamrita that we refer to. They explain us that the possibility are even beyond that, and a devotee actually rejects even that aspect. That is what we are going to talk about. So hope it gives you a little bit of an idea about how vast our creation is, and what Lord is telling us, that don't go for any of these lokas. Make your priority getting out of this matrix, as opposed to thinking of comforts and luxury in this material world alone. End of the day, it's a jail only. You may get a better, comfortable life, but you are still subject to all the material laws. So and in all of these lokas, people are still tormented with dissatisfaction, discontentment, and lack of that perfect happiness. Why? Because they have still not gone into the spiritual abodes. So an Indra is insecure about his throne, and he still has greed, envy, anger, and he's looking after the coveted seat of Brahma. So even he's insecure. It's not that that person has become spiritually elevated and perfectly happy. No, that's what our scriptures tell us. Okay. Now let's move on. So if you look at this creation, these elements of nature, they are integral parts of the system of God's creation. Who has created this whole game, or the entire 3/4 and 1/4 lokas? God has created it, right? The entire material creation is created by God. Kathopanishad says it's like a spider weaving a web. The material comes out of its body, and that is how the entire creation comes about. And then the entire material rolls back into its body. So God has created it, right, from his body itself. It is not taken the material to create this world from somebody else. Right? When we create something, we get brick from somewhere, wood from somewhere, electricity from somewhere. With God, everything is created from by himself. And then we do plus and minus and start creating things here. So because they're integral parts of the system that God has created, then the parts of the system naturally draw and give back to the whole. That is the way this universe operates. You can see it, the different examples around it as well. Like things that come from soil go back to the soil, or things that come from water come back to the gigantic water body. So that is law of this universe. Now, if you look at the sun, it lends stability to earth, provides heat and light necessary for life to exist. It is actually serving God's creation. It's a part of God and it's serving God. Everything is actually serving God. Now, each creates food from its soil, earth, and then nourishment also holds essential minerals in its womb for a civilized lifestyle. Earth is also serving. And then the air, it moves the life force in our body, and the soul sound energy is enabled by that. And so similarly, our humans are also integral part of the entire system of God's creation. And God himself, if you look at it in this shloka, Mame Vansho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Mana Shasthani Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karshati. So in this shloka, Lord Krishna is saying 15.7 that the embodied soul in this material world are my eternal fragmental parts. But bound by material nature, they are struggling with 6 senses, including the mind. What does it mean? If we are part of God, now we have spoken about this example, and it's a very beautiful analogy. It's just like hand, right? Hand, the relationship that hand has with the stomach of our body. Now, hand, it feeds the stomach. And if hand thinks that I'm not going to feed the stomach doesn't do anything, I'm going to sever or cut myself off if I exist on my own, then the hand will cease to exist. It will not get the nourishment that it truly needs. So it's in serving the stomach, it automatically gets what it needs for its subsistence. Right? Now, it's an integral part of the body, similar to how we are integral part of God. And its nourishment is dependent upon body. Because the blood, oxygen, nutrients, etc., everything that it needs, it's basically provided for by the body itself. Now, if hand looks on, like I said, this service as burdensome, like we do, we think, okay, why should we offer it for the pleasure of God, my karmas, which Karam Yoga talks about, or any activity that I do in this life, if I feel or we feel that why we should do this, we should do it for our pleasure and we deserve it, then it's just like had basically relinquishing its true duty or the constitutional position around it. We cannot sustain. That is why there's a discontent, ongoing perpetual discontent around whatever we do. We'll never going to get that. Now it's in performance of the yagya. The yagya for hand is to feed the stomach, and yagya for humans is to do things for the pleasure of God. So God is saying, do the yagya, and then you will get what you're looking for. What we are doing is opposite of yagya, the bhog, the enjoyment for self, and that changes the entire dynamics around what we get in return.
Nitinji, quick
So,
question.
Mhm.
Lord Buddha, who himself was avatar of Lord Krishna, preached highest goal as nirvana, means moksha. What was the reason?
Yeah, so see, when these big personalities come, okay, they come for a specific purpose, and they would tell things which would make sense with regards to that particular time, audience, and what is appropriate for that time. So let's look at from a timing standpoint. Lord Buddha came when the Bali Pratha, the sacrificing the animals, and so many things related to Vedas were being misutilized. There was a lot of misinformation. The Brahmanvad, they became the go-to person for God, and they started distorting the very tenets of the Vedas itself. So at that time, it was appropriate for God to reset this whole thing. God has his own ways to do that. So if you look at it from a timing standpoint, it's very strategic. When he came, he did not say, you know what, Vedas is anyway, it's end of the day, Vedas is the system of truth, the body of knowledge that gets revealed whenever the creation comes. Now, if you were to come and say, this Veda actually means this, but you have started, misrepresenting the facts and started using this for your own vested interest, or you have gotten it wrong, so things would have been very. So he said, let's wipe the slate clean. He said, forget about Vedas. So if you go to Buddhist teachings, they don't talk about Vedas at all. Okay, because at that time, Vedas became something that was being abused big time. Humans are humans, end of the day. He wiped the slate clean. He introduced the concept of work with your consciousness, and nirvana is the ultimate goal. Now, if that was the case, it should have stopped there. Right? Within Buddhism, also, there are so many philosophies. Jainism also talks about things. So it did stop there. After that, Vedas being Vedas, God strategically placed Shankaracharya after that. In fact, Shankaracharya is called Shankar Bhagwan's avatar only. Now, his job was to take further where Buddha had left. So Buddha had established, okay, the formless aspect, okay, you just work with your consciousness. Now, when Shankaracharya came, he picked up that and established the formless. Now, Buddha did not talk about God at all. Okay, it's your consciousness, work with that. Shankaracharya came and he built on that and introduced the Nirakar, formless aspect of God, Aham Brahmasmi. And he re-established the Vedas, because Vedas have to be re-established. They are the manuals which are revealed as soon as the creation comes in. And then he also established the path of moksha. So he built on where Buddha had left. But the knowledge is still not done. God has his own ways to re-establish that knowledge. Then came Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Advait, Vishisht Advait, and finally Kripaluji Maharaj, who reconciled all these philosophies. So the point is, based on what the audience are ready for in that particular space, the different teachers come and impart the message so that the humanity can move forward. But over a period of time, everything comes together, right? For example, when Muslims were fighting, the message that Pegambar gave them, he was not giving them, okay, of basically the message that Arjun is getting, right? If let's imagine if Krishna is telling Arjun, don't steal, or you got to be honest. So Arjun would have said, Krishna, are you kidding me? What kind of dialogue are we having? So the messages that were given to those warriors very simplified. If you don't do this, don't do this. If you do this, this is the penalty. If you do, so really depends on the audience at that point. And then when you move forward, the subsequent Jagat Gurus come and they reconcile everything around it and introduce the other aspect of the God as well, rather than confusing the audience. So it's like a big elephant is there. Maybe the time is appropriate to disclose only the tail, and then maybe another leg, and maybe the ears, and maybe another leg, and then finally the whole elephant, the picture is portrayed. That is how it typically goes. So yes, moksha is there. Bhagavad Gita ends at moksha. That's what I say. Where Quran ends, Bible begins. Quran ends at don't do this, don't do that. Bible says become good. Bhagavad Gita says becoming good is good, but not good enough. And moksha is the game. Then Bhagavatam says, all right, moksha is fine, but leave aside dharma, arth, calm, and moksha, and then let's enter to depths of bhakti. So Bhagavatam goes into the depths of bhakti. Now Chaitanya Charitamrita talks about, okay, within bhakti there are so many levels. Right? And Maharajji, if you read Prem Ras Madhira, he'll talk about Brajaras. So it really depends on what you are ready for, and God will strategically place you in that era along with that particular saint. What we are discussing is looking at a big picture and talking about things which you will not normally hear about, and it's only made available to us by Maharaj and Swamiji. You will not get this message anywhere in the planet. Okay, to be honest, it'll end at moksha, nothing beyond that. Mhm.
And there's a request, the previous slide before the hand slide, please.
All right, this one.
Yeah, I think they wanted to take a picture. So
All right, no worries. I hope you've taken it. So that's fine. Now we're talking about hand analogy. Now, so individual souls are also tiny parts of Supreme Soul. We have our role to play in the grand scheme of things. When we perform our yagna, our self-interest is naturally satiated. See, the whole game of us repeating in this material world or creation is because our self-interest is not getting satiated. Now, so scriptures are telling us your self-interest will get satiated when you perform this yagna. Now, getting to serve God eternally in his divine pastimes is the highest prize for a soul. It's a very simple concept because we are eternal fragmental parts of God, and doing his service is when, till the point we don't get that, we have still not fully realized God. Okay? Let's look at it through another angle. Hopefully that will make a little more sense. Let's have a bit of a discussion and get this going. So God is bliss and bliss is God. All the scriptures say that. Anando Brahmeti Vijanat. Okay, we know that. All the scriptures talk about it, whether you go to Islam or Christianity, and Sanatan Dharma is anyway the manual, right? So this concept has to be understood. Hladini Shakti, the bliss, Anand, God is bliss. Now let's talk about which of the following is a complete realization of God. I would like to have a bit of a discussion, but I'll throw out stuff for you to think about, contemplate upon, and talk about. Now, to begin with, enjoyers of God's material energy in Mrityaloka. Some people say, you know what, it's good. We like the honey that we get here. Now, is it a realization of God where we get, let's say, we get a lot of money, we become the richest person, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, or Adani, whoever it is. We get a lot of fame, or we get perfect worldly relations in our life. You know, parents, supportive parents, great spouse, obedient kids, and good friends, and everything. If we enjoy all the material energy to the hilt in its most pristine, pure form, does it mean we have realized God? Anybody who agrees, you can put it in the comment if you think yes, that is. Okay. But if that is the case, then when we go to God, why do we say Sukh Sampatti Gharave Kashtamite Tanka? Because that means we are trying to realize God in a way that we think is the way we should go about it, right? Yes, Surinder, you wanted to add something? I'm just going to move this discussion forward today. Yeah.
I wanted to respond to your question. That's very good. Mrityaloka is a creation of the God. And when we enjoy whatever is available, money, power, fame, worldly relations, it is because of the God. So the moment we realize that it is the grace of the God, that completes the whole thing. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's say we get the grace of God and we have a very decent life with regards to all the material things that an ordinary person craves for. Right? That is why we work, and that is why we strive for so many things. That template life has to be perfect. Now let's say it is perfect. First of all, it's not going to be perfect for anyone. Okay, our scriptures are telling us. But let's say it was perfect. You think that means you have realized God? Answer is yes or no. It's a very binary answer, right? No, scriptures are telling us no, that's not realization of God. So first of all, this whole activity is a futile exercise. If you don't agree, that is, it is right. Now, if you say no, I don't care about realizing God, I'm fine to keep striving for this. If not in this life, then next. If not next, then thereafter and thereafter and thereafter until I get all of what I thought. That is a different question, but it is not realization of God, right? God is himself saying that because you will be subject to birth and death. And when you are subject to birth and death, it's a pretty risky proposition. Nobody is immune to Tridosh, Tritap, all that stuff. Is anybody immune to all the crazy things that happen in this world? Bad timing, bad relationship, anxiety, stress, fear, insecurity, diseases, and nobody is. So let's move on. Enjoyers of God's material energy in celestial abodes. Let's say you become Indra, right? You've got a lot of Urvashis to choose from and a lot of people at your disposal. Varun Dev, this Dev, that Dev, Brahmaji maybe, Brahmalok and Gandharvalok, where people will go head over heels if they look at you. That is how attractive you look. You think that enjoyers of God's material energy in celestial abode is the realization of God, if you get that? Anybody who agrees with that? because in India, a lot of people, they take pride in saying Swargavasi, late Shri Swargavasi, right? That means they have attained something really good. And it is worth telling it to everybody that they have gone to Swarg, or they are wishing that even if they are going somewhere else, we want to send them to Swarg. Do you think that is realization of God? Anybody who wants to say that it is? It is not. Okay, good. It is not. Scriptures are telling us it is not. Okay, you are still in this shloka. God is saying all the way up to Brahmalok. Indra is much beyond Brahmalok. You know, the if you multiply the bliss that Indra gets, that is 1 unit of Brahaspati, who's Guru, his bliss, and then you keep on that, Prajapati comes, and after that Brahmaloka. So Indra is like somewhere in between when it comes to the bliss one can enjoy in celestial abodes. It is still not realization of God. Then what do we gain if we go there? Maybe some kind of a temporary vacation where we can enjoy, and then again we fall hard. So it is also not God realization. It's not a complete realization of God. Okay, then let's say going past Maya, birth and death cycle, you think it is complete realization of God? Anybody who thinks that? Now, see, you have gone past Maya. You have gone past birth and death cycle. Anybody who thinks it's complete realization of God? Any point of views on that? Okay, everybody is silent. So I'm assuming nobody's okay. Yes, Monica ji, please.
Radhe Radhe Nitin ji, Radhe Radhe everyone. To some extent, maybe Nitin ji, God realized because that's how the soul was able to come out of the birth and death cycle. But again, may not have attained Premanand because of whatever reason, but may have an idea of God realization.
There is God realization. You know, you're past Maya, done deal. You're not going to come back. So it is God realization. I put a question, is it a complete realization of God? That's where that prefix of complete realization of God, because
no.
that's where we spoke. Okay, yeah, all right. We'll continue on that. So thank you for that. Yes, Sandhya, and Prabhatji is there as well.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
In some sense, actually, the first one, I mean, none of them are complete realization of God, but in some sense, first one is better than the other two. At least there is open chance for you to go for God realization if you're in the first category. But in the next two, you kind of lose that as well, right?
Yeah, actually, the first one where you have an ability to do Purusharth, right? Although our scriptures tell us that it's very rare that a person is rich, powerful, famous, and they still have spiritual orientation. Very rarely it happens because they're intoxicating. They can corrupt people. If you hit the lottery, so if you're a devotee, sorry to disappoint you, if you're genuinely trying to go to Krishna, he'll make sure you never hit a lottery. Okay, because Krishna knows that will corrupt you. So if you want to win lottery or you want to choose Krishna, that choice is yours. Yes, Prabhatji.
A quick question in the chat. Without Mrityuloka, how can the souls get to feel the grace and realization of what we are getting through CICE? Nitin Prabhu / Swamiji.
Sorry, I didn't get the question. Without the?
No. Without Mrityuloka, how can the souls get to feel the grace and realization of what we are getting through CICE? Nitin Prabhu / Swamiji ?
It's Swamiji Maharaj. Okay, I'm just a parrot here. Okay, reiterating what I've heard. Yeah, so it's actually a privilege to be in Mrityuloka. I completely agree, and because I think it's probably Surendraji, right, who said that. So
you're
all right.
100% right.
Yes. Right.
Yes,
Prabhatji.
Prabhatji, Radhe Radhe. Please go ahead.
Radhe.
You've been unmuted. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So basically, as per this particular step, going past Maya and Maya, birth and death cycle, it's like we will attain the mukti or moksha. But after that, there will be one more step to reach to the extreme level.
No, great point. Very nice. Thank you, Prabhatji. We'll come back to that, and yes, and that's a great point. And this is basically going past the cycle moksha, nirvana, brahman. You're already done deal at this point. It's not an ordinary state to be in. I mean, if somebody gives you moksha, grab it. Don't grab it if you're a devotee, and but then moksha is not an ordinary feat at all. It's a very high state to be in, and you are beyond that cycle. But we'll go further than that. Yes, Samji?
Go ahead, Sanjay.
Radhe Radhe, I think there should be, at that stage, the person will be self-realized, but not the God realization. Because
moksha is actually beyond self-realization. You are God realized, but then you've realized God not in its entirety. Okay, I'll tell you the last one. Going past Maya, birth and death cycle, plus serving God. You think it is complete realization of God? Okay, I see one tick mark. Anybody who disagrees or agrees to disagree or disagree to agree? All right.
I think I agree.
Yeah, this is Premanand. Tomorrow we'll talk about the categories of Premanand, but yes. So if you look at it, the first ones, this falls into Bhukti. This falls into Mukti. This falls into Prem Sudha. So they have a bhajan, beautiful bhajan from Maharaj Ji. Bhukti, Mukti, Nadhe Radhe, Prema Sudha De. Okay. So when you reject Bhukti and Mukti, that's when you get the divine love, which is called Prem Sudha of God. And that is the topmost prize of God that God can give. Why? Because once he gives you that, then he becomes your servant. But for him to become your servant, first you have to prove that you are a servant. Okay, that is the rule. And now this brings to the question, what is the significance of seva in that case? When we talk about seva and sadhana, see, one of the most important things about seva is it's helping you build sanskars of what your true constitutional position is. You are anyway a servant of God. So when we get married, do we serve only our husband? No, right? We serve the entire family. Seva gives us an opportunity to build seva sanskars for everybody, thinking of them as Krishna's relatives. So if you get upset with somebody, Seva world will give you ample opportunity to work on yourself. So seva is very important. Take on seva and see how life starts unfolding. The challenging situations, people who will press your nerve, and that's where you can build those sanskars ground up, where eventually you have to serve God. And that is the highest realization, because that selflessness will actually enable you to get the topmost prize of God. No other thing would. Moksha is dukh nivritti. It's also a spiritual bliss, but you've still not gotten an opportunity to serve God at that point. So seva world actually enables you to do that. When you're doing seva, first of all, you've already become selfless. Secondly, now you'll start encountering challenges from Krishna's relatives, which is all these people. Funny people will come and they'll press your buttons and throw their tantrums and all that stuff. When you start cracking it, keeping the big picture in mind, and that crash course of life that comes in seva, and you start conquering it step by step, that will help you build those sanskars that will help you serve God finally, because that is essentially what seva does to us. So seva, the reason I say is because we are Nityadas. It doesn't sound very cool, but that is our fact. That is the truth, absolute truth. Everything else is realization of truth, but partial. You might have attained God in moksha, but you have still not serving him. And until you have fulfilled your potential, being his fragmental part, you have not really realized the truth in its entirety. So that is how it was. Even though it's a truth, you have realized God, but not completely in it in entirety. So that is the whole idea of divine love, which goes beyond mukti. And then we will talk about the Premanand, the categorizations of Premanand tomorrow to conclude this topic. Okay, what are the possibilities within Premanand also? We can choose to worship God in so many ways. And within those so many ways, there are so many different possibilities based on what we are ready for, or how far we want to be brave enough in our devotion. So that's something we'll talk about tomorrow. Okay, with that, I'll open it up. Any questions? So far, I know it was a little deep topic today, but I'm sure there'll be some questions around it.
A quick question. Why is that in celestial abodes, we cannot do Purusharth as in Bhulok and try to get moksha or beyond? Question mark. From celestial abodes, I'll just come. From celestial abodes, can you not go to Vaikunth? Example, Brahma when his 100 years is done, as was mentioned earlier in the session.
Brahmaji is an exception for the outstanding job he does. But other than that, for Jivatmas, see, this is how the God has designed this game. I don't know how. We can complain to God once we become God realized. But the game, the way he has designed it is, in Mrityulok, he gives you an option or ability to make deposits and do withdrawals, both. But when you go into any Bhogyoni, Narak, or Swarg, he gives you a bank account where you can do withdrawal only. You cannot do deposits. Okay, I don't know why he has designed it that way. So what happens is, for all the punyas that you have accumulated through your sattvic deeds, he will give you a balance and a better life in one of the celestial abodes. And then you start dipping into that fund. When that fund is over, you are back to 8.4 million. Similarly, for all the papas that you have done, he will give you Naraklok. And you start eroding your paps one by one by one by one. And then once you've eroded, then again you're back to 8.4 million. So those Bhogyonis, which include Swarg, Narak, and for that matter, other species as well, you are not given an ability to make further deposits. It's a withdrawal only account. Why God has done that, I don't know. Okay, that's something you can ask God. Another reason for us to become God realized soon. But that is how it works. As scriptures are telling us that you are still rotating in 8 Brahmaji is an exception because first of all, reaching the state of Brahma takes a lot of spiritual merit. And after he has done that job, God gives him his prize. Okay, now you're God realized.
Monica ji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Monica ji.
Nitin ji, how do we keep ourselves in check that we are on the right path?
Okay, so no, that's a good question. So yeah, see, there are some, first of all, are we progressing? Are we regressing? Truly speaking, the trajectory only God and Guru knows. Have you regressed in this life? Have you progressed? Or are you reclaiming what you already had? God and Guru would know that. But for us, there are certain indicators, that symptoms that you can use as a yardstick to see whether you are progressing or not. For example, are you getting upset, with small things, or is that threshold increasing with time? You are peaceful. Previously, if somebody would touch you and you will get provoked. Now somebody has to punch you to provoke you. So first of all, those thresholds will start increasing, getting better at that. Secondly, the joy quotient or the contentment quotient, where you're not getting worked up every now and then looking at other things, comparing with others, and all those things will start settling down. Third thing is, you will become more like swan. You will get attracted to things which are giving value. Like swans, they congregate in mountain lakes. Crows, they congregate in garbage cans. So your tendency to enjoy worldly gossip and those topics will start diminishing over time. So these are some of the symptoms which will tell you that, something good has started happening. But if your anger is increasing, you have started gossiping 10 times more, then something is not right. These are some of the symptoms which you can use as a yardstick to say, you know what, it's getting a little better now. So generally, your joy quotient, your contentment, the peace, your perspective, the stability, the quality of thoughts your mind is generating and surfing in the head, they will start improving. That is the beauty of spirituality. And if it is not, then some course correction is needed. Double the dose of your spirituality. Double is not working, quadruple it. There's no other way.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. No worries. Yes,
Go ahead, Ma.
anyone?
Sandhya, go
I
ahead,
think
Ma.
we have some announcements to make. I wanted to make a quick announcement around January 14th and 15th. We are going to have an Antakshari, Jagat Gurutam Devas is coming, and also an online program. So mark your calendars for that. And I think there's a link also we wanted to publish. Maybe we can put that link if you want to enroll for Antakshari. Please do sign up for it. Maharaji's bhajans, and it's going to be an awesome event and a lot of good interactive activities planned around that as well. I'll try to find the link if you don't have it, Mutamaniji, already.
It's posted. It's posted in the chat.
Oh, you are.
No, not
It's
me,
like with
Sandhya ji.
Amritamaniji is like
Sandhya, not me, Sandhya ji, not me.
okay, it's like Accenture, consider it done. Okay, great. Yes.
Wife here when Sandhya here.
Yeah. So please check it out and do sign up for that if you're interested in bhajan singing and all. I know we have a lot of participants who engage, participate in our devotional segment. So please do sign up. It's going to be a very nice event, Jagat Gurutam Divas. Yes, any more questions or things that you
Go
wanted to?
ahead,
We have
Sandhya
5 more minutes.
I just had a technical question. I mean, I don't know if there is an answer to it,
You're
but
you're allowed to ask as long as it is easy. Okay, so please go ahead.
for you, everything is easy. But yeah, I
No,
mean, I don't
nothing.
know
I
if
mean,
this
I'll
question
try.
makes sense. But it was like, so there are infinitely many souls. So when we say Jeev, there are infinite. But in the material world, the number of forms that the Jeev can take is finite number. It is 8.4 million. Why?
In our,
I mean,
go
yeah.
ahead, yeah.
Okay.
So
I was
8.4.
thinking about that why is that the case? I mean, it could have been the case that there were infinitely many forms that souls could take in the Mrityu Lok. But then I was thinking along one line, and I just wanted some degree of confirmation whether that makes sense, which was because in the material world, probably God has designed it in this way that resources are limited and hence everything is finite in some sense. I don't know. Yeah,
I don't
that's
know, maybe 8.4 million because we have 4-headed Brahma, and 8-headed Brahma will have 8.8 million. I don't know. So depending upon the creativity of Brahmaji, right, and what he thinks is enough, probably, because every day he wakes up and he has to create everything, right? So I don't know. Is
so
it 8.4
8.4.
million in other Brahmans also or not? I have
Oh,
no
I
idea.
thought it is for combined, isn't it? Or maybe
No,
the 8.4
8.4 million
is
is,
for our thing.
see, we have a certain Mahabharat, Ramayana, and scriptural reference, right? Other Brahmans will have their own. So I don't know if it is limited to 8.4 million, more or less.
Okay. Yeah,
Right?
that's it.
Our Ramayana and Mahabharat and other Brahmans were Ramayana and Mahabharat, that those stories could be different as well. Right? Even though the Ram Avatar, Krishna Avatar happens. So similarly, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I mean, we could ask Swamiji, but I don't know. Our frame of reference for our Manvantar is at least this one. If there are more species in some other Brahmans, I don't know. Yes, Prakash, you had a question.
Yeah, just for my perspective to what Sanjay has asked. So although we have 8.4 million species and infinite souls, but it's not one-to-one mapping, right? So one soul can take, like, for example, you take snake. There can be there are millions of snakes, right? So it's like that, right? So it doesn't have to be that much. Again, this is just my perception. Okay.
Possibly, yeah. There are certain, even Swamiji says, there are certain answers we will get only when we become God realized. Right? Even Maharajji has simplified it for us, saying there are innumerable energies of God, but for your sake, for your devotion, for your intellectual speculation and understanding, just consider these 3 main energies, Brahma, Jeev, and Maya. Okay, you don't need to understand beyond that for now. But as we become God realized, or some of you might have already, there are other dimensions also that you might be privy of, right? Which probably people won't be able to understand, and that is why we don't have it in our scriptures. So yeah, there are possibilities, but certain answers we'll get when we become God realized, and I don't know if this is one of those or not. Swamiji can answer it.
Yeah, there's a similar question here. There are 4 lakh species of humans itself. Is this true? Could some details be shared?
Yeah, I've heard about that as well. 4 lakh species. In fact, in one of the sessions I had taken, I had spoken about that as well. Yeah, there are 4 lakh, and now I don't know if it is, what does it encompass basically, right? All kind of humans across all the creations, or what it means. But yeah, I've come across that statistic somewhere. Again, something I can ask Swamiji. Point is that we don't know where we will be thrown in next life. See, our assumption is we are once human, always human. That's not the case. It takes a bit for God to give us this scholarship again. And if the scholarship is frittered away in mundane activities, then we are back to that cycle. So the key is to make the most of this human birth and this opportunity so that we are continue to make progress. Great. I know Swamiji's session is going to start now, so we will end on time. These days we have become very, very punctual, which is a good sign. But yeah, we're not having our devotional segment. We will resume that after the retreat is over. Yes, maybe one more, Himangani ji, and then we will wrap it up for today. And please fill out the feedback tracker if not already. Yes,
And even
Himangini.
for the second anniversary celebrations of our session, those who are interested, so please to fill in that in the
Yes,
tracker.
yeah, we will have it next week, and look out for the dates. And Pramuta Vaniji is singing as well, so you should all register if you've not already. Yes, Himangini ji.
Radhe, what is Brahmurat?
Brahma
Oh,
Muhurat.
Brahma Muhurat is what you see out of your window if you open it right now, because it's 4 o'clock for you.
Okay.
It is when the sun is about to rise. That is called Brahma Muhurat. It is considered very auspicious, and I think
Auspicious time.
people who
Oh.
meditate, they feel it is at, your powers of meditation, they increase manifold. So you are in the Brahma Muhurat right now. So congratulations, Himangini ji. Time for Ruthyam.
I want to continue with the class, but I have to go to my job on the 3rd of January. So for my body clock to be up at 3 and then get to work, then leave for work for 7. I was just wondering, how am I gonna
You can
juggle?
always catch up on YouTube videos if you're not able to make it, because I know it can be brutal, getting up at 3. But if you can do the session pre-Brahma Muhurat and end it at Brahma Muhurat, that could be an option. But if not, then you can get up at Brahma Muhurat and go for job. If not, then you can get up at the job time and catch up on the YouTube videos. So all options are available, depending upon what works best for you.
It's a bit hard on the body.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah. So yeah, whatever
I'll
works
give it
good.
a
But
try.
the good thing is, but we put it on YouTube, so you can always catch up.
Can you send me the link, please?
Yes, I think it's
we will.
already.
Yes.
Already. Yes. We'll. If you fill out the feedback tracker, I'll also personally send it to you. If you can share your number and everything, I'll share it with you.
All right, I'll give it a go after the 3rd of January. See how I manage.
Sure.
Okay,
So
thank you,
everybody.
Radhe.
Radhe everyone, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We will get into the depths of Premanand tomorrow to conclude this topic, and then we will be back on track, chapter 3 and chapter 4, pretty soon. So thank you, everybody. Radhe. Good night and good day.
Thank you, everyone. Radhe.
Radhe.